You know what? I was watching that and it jumped out at me. I just thought, is that coaching or showboating? And I thought it was showboating. Pau Gasol, and maybe he didn't get free or didn't try hard enough from his defender to set the screen. I'll get that. And the coach, you set up a play. He tried, right? It was half-hearted, right?
And Capella was holding him too.
Right, but it was half-hearted. I'll give you that.
Yep.
But the theatrics, the yelling, this guy's won 2 championships. He's done a lot, had a lot of accomplishments. Is that really the way you need to get the message across to Pau to say, other than, dude, you gotta break through that and you gotta give me more effort? I mean, without all the screaming. Right. I always remember, and Skip, I think you agree with me. We talked about this. Larry Brown to me is the best coach I ever saw, college or pro.
I'm with you.
Everywhere he went, he made whatever team he had.
I'm doing college and pro together.
Right? I agree. He's the best
coach I've ever
basketball coach I've ever seen. I remember 2005, Rasheed Wallace, in the huddle, they told Rasheed Wallace, do not leave Robert Horry open. It's a classic moment, Game 5 at the Palace. They have Ginobili in the corner. Rasheed goes to help to seal him off. Ginobili throws a bounce pass out to Robert Horry, three-point line, hits a 3. They lose that game. Did he go ballistic on Rasheed Wallace? You know, you made the point that you weren't supposed to leave him open. And I just think sometimes some of it is showboating from coaches, and I don't think it's always necessary.
Quick story. I'm talking to this man, my friend Rob, last night. We're talking about ideas for the show, and he randomly brings up the Spurs moment. And it shocked me because it was kind of a naive question on your part, but it was beautifully, piercingly naive because you're exactly right. Nobody even thinks to question Gregg Popovich because he has 5 championship rings. He coached Duncan, Ginobili, Parker.
Robinson.
Yeah, back to the day. But you're exactly right because Pau Gasol deserves better than that. He's got 2 rings. He did choose to come and play in San Antonio this year. He wanted to be a doctor. He has a lot of class and a lot of dignity about him. And he's been doing this for a long time at a high level and is probably as respected a player as you will find in the NBA. And to undress him, so to speak, that way on national TV, in between the end of regulation and an overtime in which you're going to be without your best offensive player and your best defensive player.
And you need Pau.
You need Pau emotionally and literally. And you also need to be trying to figure out what your strategy is going to be offensively to score a single point in overtime, in which they went for the first 4+ minutes of the 5-minute overtime before they scored their first field goal. So you were right, and it startled me because I always say, and have said many times on this show, Gregg Popovich gets too much credit and too many passes. And what sticks in my craw, and we're hardcore old-time reporters, but he gets passes for treating interviewers with no respect and no professional courtesy whatsoever. And he does it with the courtside in between quarters interviews in which he just shames them. But it's like, oh, but that's just Pop. And he's become this lovable curmudgeon when he's just a curmudgeon. He's not lovable to me at all. Again, I'm a huge Spurs fan, but I'm trying to be objective about this because the man who deserves credit for this dynasty, if it is a dynasty, remember, they've won 1 championship in the last 10 years, okay? So
and they're not a dynasty, Skip.
Okay,
They've never won back-to-back.
But for this run,
right,
nobody knows or talks about R.C. Buford, who makes all these draft picks. So, again, Pop inherited Tim Duncan because the previous year's team, featuring David Robinson, he was hurt all year, played 6 games, and they went 20-62, and you hit the lottery and get Tim Duncan, thank you, God.
And then Robinson comes back.
Yeah, and then he comes back, and you got in the old days, they called them the Twin Towers. So now you steal, like Tony Parker was the 28th pick in the draft, and Manu Ginobili was the second to last pick in the draft, 57th overall, bottom of the 2nd round. And then, of course, Kawhi Leonard, you stole him for George Hill straight up for the 15th pick in the draft, and it kept you afloat. And I'm not saying he's a bad coach, because he is, but you know how frustrated I get. He takes his foot off the gas at the end of the year and rests his players too much. But again, he's getting passes for all these things. That was an ugly incident with Pau Gasol.
And that's why I brought it up to you, Skip. It was the first thing that hit me after that game was, really? That's exactly what I
Yeah,
thought.
if it was DeJounte Murray, the rookie that they had to throw in the starting lineup because Parker got hurt, I'd get that, but not Pau Gasol. Really?
Well, I guess he and Coach Belichick are a lot more alike than just winning, because Coach Belichick will get on Tom Brady. He will cut the tape on and says, "Tom, what the bleep are you thinking?"
I got it, but would he do it publicly in a crucial moment before overtime?
And I'll
of the
give you
Super Bowl?
one. The pick six,
Yeah.
right? In the Super Bowl, when it looked like everything was bleak, he could have ran to the sideline and said to Tom Brady, threw his hands up. At that point, Tom Brady had played very poorly. And he could have gone off on
Yeah,
Tom Brady, but he didn't.
You don't normally. Well, I agree. Now, we've seen Coach Pop yell at Tony Parker. We've seen him
He
yell
does.
at Kawhi and Tim Duncan and some of these other guys. So if he'll yell at his top guys, I don't really think Pau Gasol will be exempt. Normally in the NFL circle, Skip, you know this: a top prominent quarterback, a Brady or Aaron Rodgers, you would never show them up publicly. Never. I've never seen it. And I know behind closed doors, Coach Reeves talked to John about some things, but things that he talked to him behind closed doors, he would never even address in a meeting, let alone in a public setting on a football field. So I'm really not surprised, because I've seen Pop yell at other guys. You remember game one, he told David Lee, "Get you out of the game."
He gets on David Lee hard. Yep.
He told him, "Get you out of the game. You won't play no defense." But you got to know who can do it, because I've seen some guys that you try to do that to them, Skip, and they bow up. Did that one time with my grandma. My grandma said, "Boy, I told you, if you bow up, you get toe up."
She said that?
The only time she ever slapped me, Skip, you know I had a smart mouth. Y'all, in case y'all didn't know, I had a smart mouth.
You?
Kid, I had a smart mouth, kid. Joy.
Was it a pimp slap or a regular slap?
Hey, and I was saying, she said something to me, and I didn't realize how close she was. And I said, "Granny, you make me," I was gonna say, you know I was gonna say sick. I didn't even get S out of my mouth. What?
You cried?
Yeah, I was scared.
You didn't
She
cry.
called.
How old were you?
Probably like 9. She caught me off guard though, man. She didn't have to hit me like that.
Wow.
But so you have to be careful. But I think Pop has a good pulse of his team and knows who he can talk, who can take it. So so if he's like this in public, can you imagine what his practices are like, Skip? Can you imagine what film sessions are like, Skip, when they miss a defensive rotation or a guy makes a terrible pass? Can you imagine behind closed doors?
Yeah, remember, in the big picture, he is considered a player's coach
Yes.
because he rests and coddles his players from game to game. But usually, when he goes off on a player, it's what he calls a teaching moment. He'll pull a player out of the game and say, "Come sit next to me."
Yeah.
Might be Tony Parker.
Yes.
So he can say, what do you do? You know, and
Yeah.
say, you should do this about that. But this was not a teaching moment. This was red-faced anger to me, where he just laid into him.
You gotta sit
Yeah.
spick.
And again, it was not a teaching moment because it's not time to teach.